So it's a summer Shabbat. I thought I'd do things a little bit differently this morning and teach from the floor. So as many of us know and feel, summertime marks the end of some chapters and the beginning of new ones. As we mentioned earlier, and we'll mark at the end of the service, we're beginning a new tenure for our Sinai Temple president, Mirzad Roshan. Mazel tov to Mirzad. And this past week, I was reflecting that it's hard to believe, but Rabbi Sherman and I are completing 15 years in the rabbinate. I don't know how it's possible because we're only 25 years old, but it happened. We're beginning our 16th year, and so I was thinking for a little bit about the various texts, the various teachings that our rabbis in the seminary would offer to rabbinical school students in their 5th or their 6th year of study to kind of help you get a sense of what it means to be a rabbi. Of course, you really don't learn what it means to be a rabbi until you are a rabbi. But in preparation, they would offer us a few gems. I want to share them in just a moment. But I want you to think for a second, and I'm going to take some answers. When you think about the qualities or characteristics that a rabbi should possess, what are they? Offer me a phrase, offer me a word. Empathy, thank you. Connection, comfort. Oh, thank you, patience. We need patience in lots of areas in our life. Leadership, kindness, lead by example, wisdom, love. That's a beautiful way of, I should just end it right there. Love. Fantastic. So I want you to hold on to some of these qualities and characteristics and see if they align with the same teachings that our rabbis in rabbinical taught us right before we graduated from rabbinical school. So the first teaching that I want to offer you is one of my favorites. It comes from the Yerushalmi, known as the Jerusalem Talmud. And the story goes like this. The people of Simonia came to their Rebbe. Now this Rebbe wasn't their primary rabbi. This rabbi was kind of the central rabbi for the county, for the area. And they said to him, we need a rabbi for our town, so we need you to help us find the perfect person to take on this role. And he said, okay, I'm listening. And they said, we need someone who can teach Torah, someone who can sing like the Chazan, someone who knows Jewish law, someone who can preach, someone who is kind. And he said, I've got exactly the right person for you. I will give you Levi Bar Sisi. And so they hired this man, Levi Bar Sisi, and in the first act, the town, if you will, decided that they would build Levi Bar Sisi a Bema Gedolah. What does that sound like? A Bema Gedolah. A big bima. I heard it. They would build for him a big bima, and he should go up onto the bima. Are you liking this? They should go up onto the bima, and the town started to ask the rabbi all kinds of questions. They started with Jewish law, and they pummeled him with questions. And Levi Bar Sisi is standing on top of this huge bima, and he's paralyzed. He can't answer a question. So the townspeople thought, that's okay, maybe he doesn't know Jewish law. Rabbis can't know everything. Let's ask him some midrash. They start asking him questions. In midrash, what happens? He doesn't say a thing. He doesn't say a thing. And so the people go back to their Rebbe and say, you know, this guy that you hired for us, he's not really working out. How is it possible that you thought he was the right person for us? And so the rabbi went to Levi Bar Sisi and said, what's going on? And he said, you know, the second I walked up on that bima, my heart swelled. My soul swelled. And what I realized is that I was so inflated and so taken with myself that I couldn't answer a thing. So you tell me, just in a few words, if you can, Why do you think this is one of the teachings our rabbis give to us right before we begin our official tenure as rabbi in a congregation, a school, Hillel, wherever it may be? Why is this the teaching? To teach us to be humble. Beautiful. I heard humility, to teach humble. I think it means sometimes we got to get off the bima. If we forget as a rabbi that one of the most important things is to get off the bima, learn your story, connect with our congregation, then the Torah that we hold in our hearts, it's worthless unless we're able to connect with each and every one of you. That's the first teaching. The second teaching. This story also comes from the Talmud, and it's really interesting that our rabbis in seminary decided to use these texts all about rabbis choosing rabbis. So this is about Rabbi Gamliel, and he decides to appoint successors to the academy. And he appoints Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan. So he decides to send a message to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan. And what happens? Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan, they hear that they're appointed to this huge job. And they ignore the request to come forward. So Rabbi Gamliel said, that's impossible. Nobody ignores me. How could it be that they're ignoring my request to take this huge job? So they got the message, and they showed up. And Rabbi Gamliel says to them, I have a feeling that you thought being a rabbi was receiving a position of power. But I want you to hear my words. Being a rabbi, yes, it's about power. But being a rabbi is about servitude. It's one of my favorite texts, and I wanted to share it this morning because it's true. Being a rabbi, there is a lot of power in this position. Power in the way that we use our words, power in the way that we make decisions, but most of all, this is a position of servitude. We're an Eved Hashem, a servant of God, a servant to the community, and a servant to the world in the ways in which we choose to bring Torah flowing from our words and flowing from our hands. And one last text that I want to give you this morning. So a few of you, I hope, received this text as you walked in through the doors of the sanctuary. Our dean, Rabbi Bill Lebo, would always teach this text from Pirkei Avot. So some of you may have the sheet. And what the text gives us in Pirkei Avot, it teaches that there are 48 different ways. I'll wait for a second for those that have it. 48 different ways that you can acquire Torah. The text reads, greater is learning Torah than the priesthood and then royalty. Royalty is acquired in 30 steps, priesthood by 24, but the Torah is acquired by 48 different paths. Different steps. I'm not going to read through each one. I know you want to go to lunch. But I want to just draw your attention because my eyes immediately went to numbers 2, 3, and 4. Because if a rabbi, and by the way, that's why he would teach this text, because he felt that the greatest honor a rabbi could have is to teach Torah. But there's only an ability to teach Torah if you're willing to be an attentive listener, if you use proper speech, and you have a heart of understanding. It's really a challenge to each and every rabbi, whether you walk through the doors of Sinai Temple, wherever you are across the world, to think to yourself that we have to do our best to listen to you carefully, choose our words wisely, know when to speak up, know when to be silent, but through it all, shape and refine our hearts of understanding. I don't think it's a coincidence that this morning we read about Korach, in which Korach rebels against Moses and Aaron's leadership. What I find the most poignant of all is that when Korach says to Moses and Aaron, you are wielding too much power, what happens? Moses falls upon his face in embarrassment. Whether or not he took upon too much power, Moses thought to himself, exactly what was said at the beginning, to have this kind of position, I must attain the highest levels of humility. And so this Shabbat, I see it as a Shabbat of renewal, one in which, of course, we start a new position of leadership, but also we're beginning, Rabbi Sherman and myself, our second year as your co-senior rabbis of Sinai Temple. And so my prayer for this Shabbat is that we take the Torah of our rabbis and we lead each and every one of you with the utmost humility, the ability to sometimes get off of this bima and make sure that we are connecting with each and every one of you. The understanding that our heart still takes time to be shaped and refined. So with the Torah that we have learned, the Torah we will acquire, and the Torah we will teach, may we continue to lead you on paths of Kedusha, paths of holiness. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.